Welcome, and we're here with Angelica Lopez to talk a little bit about our Cultural Connections experiment plan for the month of July. And she's going to be helping us get excited about it. But first, Angelica, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, and of course, yes, I'm super excited to be here. This is a really great project and something I feel really passionate about. So thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to do this. So, like she said, my name is Angelica Lopez. I spent a couple of years in the genealogical and family history industry. Currently, I do marketing for a tech company here in Utah. But before, I used to work at Family Search, and family history is just something that has like stolen my heart in many different ways. And I'm really passionate and excited to show people how simple and easy it is for you to connect to your family. And so I'm just really grateful to be here. So thanks for having me on.
We're glad you can make it. Okay, so a lot of the Cultural Connections plan, the CCs always get to me, is about your homelands. Can you tell me why you think homelands are important for us to know about?
Oh my goodness, that's such a big and good question. So I just like immediately I go like right to like the many moments of time that like I have come to connect and know what my homelands are and how much it means to me. So instantly I'm like, wow, that's so much to say in like one short, simple way. But homelands to me are just basically like the countries or nationalities or localities or places that you can connect your family story starting. And so that's like what I personally view as a homeland is like where your family story began. What are the roots of that family story? What's the setting? What's the place? And how we can really find grounding and peace through that. So that's been my experience so far with my homelands. I'm half Mexican, and my mother is from the United States and Caucasian. And so I have always just kind of like really easily identified, like, oh, yeah, like I'm half Mexican. But while discovering and researching and doing my own research about my own family, I've discovered that like I am very English. I have French in me. I'm very Danish. I found out I have a lot of German, and so ancestry, and so it's just been a journey and a process as I've come to learn that like my family story isn't just located in one place, but we really are a global family. And I just feel really grateful to know how I feel like I fit in that family and in that story. So that's what a homeland is. Kind of a big answer to what you said, but it's really like the setting or place where your family story began that you can connect to.
That's awesome. And I mean, I guess when you say your family story, I mean, it could be as far back as you want to go or as close as you want to go.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yes. Yes.
okay.
Like it depends. Like however far back you want to go or how many few generations back, like technically like part one of my homelands could be considered Minnesota. I mean, that's like the territory of Minnesota is where one of my uh, maternal lines, like their story after coming here from Germany, like that's where they landed. And so like technically like the territory of Minnesota way back in the day could be considered a homeland for me. But if I wanted to go back even farther, of course, Germany, England, Denmark could also be considered one of my homelands as well.
Yeah, I guess because states are about as big as some countries. So
Yes.
Yes,
Back in the day, back in the day was definitely true. So yeah.
What are the benefits of knowing about your homeland that you feel are the strongest?
Oh gosh. I think for someone that's myself, that's like a single woman who's trying to like figure out like what are my next big steps in life and what are the major decisions or choices that I need to make. It's just really grounding to me and reassuring to know um, where my family comes from and how that a story can apply to my life. And so that's why it's really important to me personally, is to really know and understand where my family story began and what that story was like. And it's easier to picture what that story is like and what my ancestors have gone through when I have that setting laid out in my mind. And so, for example, like my father immigrated here to the States several years ago. I was born here in the States, but like I don't speak Spanish. And so it's always like growing up, it was kind of difficult to be like, how do I connect with and really understand like my Mexican heritage? And I took a DNA test and found like how my DNA has like been moving around in Mexico for the past several hundred years. And it looks like the immigration patterns coordinate with like the Mexican Revolution and things like that. And it's just like really created the setting for the story of what my people or my ancestors went through during that time period, to be like, wow, like granted, I'm not going through the Mexican Revolution, but I am making some major life choices and decisions right now. And just to be able to know that like, wow, they went through hard things, like, and they made it through okay, like, and I'm here and I'm proof that they made it, like, then that means that like I can make it too. So, and that's like the really big point that I think Homelands like really does, is it sets that setting and enables me to realize that like I'm living proof and evidence of like their survival story, of their strength and their courage they went through to make it so that I could even be here. So yeah, that's a very long answer to what you said again.
No,
but
awesome
that's
answer.
the connection that I make.
Now,
so
next question I want to ask you, you might have slightly answered, so let's see. How have you incorporated Homelands into your life and family?
Ooh, wow. So I instantly like go to the story that like I grew up with. So I was from Mexico, and we talk about all the time about like how we're descendants of Mex, and which is great. We would talk about how like it was difficult and hard what the Aztecs went through when they were like conquered by the Spaniards. And there was this story that my dad would always say, like whenever anything was hard or rough or difficult that I was going through, he would just be like, Angelica, like, don't forget, like, you have Aztec blood in you. Like, the Spaniards came and they wanted to know where the gold was, but we didn't tell them where the gold was. We didn't care what happened. We were not going to be afraid. We were not going to be worried. We were going to be strong and courageous and brave. And you have that same blood in you. So you can go conquer whatever it is you're facing. And for me in my life, that's job interviews, trying to figure out where to live. Like back in college, it was, what do I want to do with my career? So a lot of the unknowns in life have really been answered by me being grounded in knowing what my homelands are and what the stories are of my ancestors from those places. And it's just been really comforting to know that if you try your best, everything really does work out. For example, another story from my mother's side, because I know I've talked a lot about my dad's side. So my mother's maiden name is Kukuk, which is like a very different last name. I've never seen anybody else have that last name before. And it's spelled Kukuk. So very different, very out there. And I found out through one of my many discovery experiences about learning about my homelands, or where my family's from, hold on, my camera's getting tired there. There we go. Yeah, my camera's worn out from COVID and all the videos. But one major thing that's really stood out to me is that from learning about that last name, I found out that the reason how come my family has that last name is because one of my ancestors invented the cuckoo clock in Germany. And so, and that like is another another reason why like it's really like stood out to me and helped me a lot is because by just knowing, like, because I researched like, okay, where does this last name come from? It comes from Germany. And when I started researching more, it like came up with all these weird responses of the definition and name. But as I did more research and found out that like how back in the day in that area where my ancestors are probably from, like your last name was like from like your profession. And so I found out that it was like the cuckoo clock makers that got that last name. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, that's how it happened. And it's just like every time I see cuckoo clock, sounds kind of strange, but it's like very like reassuring to me because I'm like, wow, like my ancestors invented that and it's still here. Like cuckoo clocks are still a thing. Like I'm going to be just fine because I'm trying my best and it's going to be okay. So that's like how it like really grounds me, knowing that like, because I'm here, it's like I'm living proof of the strength and power of literally thousands of people who lived before me that have made it possible for me to live here in this moment. And that's like what's really cool is because like, even though I may not know like 16 generations back, like who exactly was in my family and who exactly was my great something great grandmother or my great something great grandfather, like what's really reassuring is to know that like I may not know that complete full family tree, but I know they existed and I know that they lived because I'm here and I'm living proof of that strength. So that's like how like Homelands helped me. They set up that setting so I understand and know about that strength that really is real and exists because I'm proof of that, and Homelands creates that setting. So
awesome. Thank you for explaining that more and helping us get excited about it. Do you have any advice for those just starting to look into their homelands?
oh yes, I have. Yes, yes, I have a lot of advice. First of all, it's very simple and easy to start. You don't have to have your entire family tree mapped out to start connecting under 5 minutes or less. If you go to the familysearch.org surname experience, type in your last name, it'll like pull up like the definition of the name and it'll list like the top countries where that last name's found in the family search tree. And so you don't even like need to have an account or anything, just type in your last name, automatically generate like the top countries. And that can give you like a starting point. Another great starting point is just like talking to your family, finding out like where does our last name come from? Because that's like a really big key to unlocking the secrets or the history of like what your homelands are. So that's like the second thing that I would do is like talk to your family or just use that tool that I mentioned, the family search surname like tool. So do that. Just go to Google and type in family search surname. Yeah. So that's be my advice. Like just start there and naturally you'll just be gravitated to what you want to learn more about. So
and there's no like, one straight homeland that you have to stick to. Like there's
yeah. No, it's like I said, like I knew I was half Mexican, so I was like, okay, I should probably learn a little bit about like Mexican history and I should probably learn a little bit about Spanish history because I do have Spanish blood in me. I'm like, okay, cool. But then when I started looking at my mom's side of stuff, I was like, I never thought myself like as like German or Danish. Like, where did this come from? And so like having that opportunity has been like, wow, like I've just learned a lot of stuff about a lot of places that I never thought were part of my story. But now, like, I'm not going to lie, anytime, so I'm a big soccer fan, and anytime any international sport comes on, I'm like, I pay extra attention to like the teams that like are from these countries that I'm actually from. Like, I never cared that much about the Danish team before, but now I do care. Like,
now you got a tie. You got a connection with them.
Yes, exactly. So just like let yourself not do what you think you should be doing, do what you want to be doing to make that connection. Because like for me, I'm like, yeah, like I just want to know the history and understand like the culture and politics, everything, because that's just naturally interesting to me on my own. For example, my mom, if you were to tell her that, she'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so bored. But like we were able to find this like recipe that's been lost on her side of the family in like 6 generations, and we were going through some old stuff, and immediately she was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to take this cookbook and I'm going to scan it in the computer and I'm going to save these recipes for forever. So like for her it was recipes, for me it's like understanding the history and politics and cultures and things like that. So just do what you naturally want to do, like, and you will make those natural real connections. Because just so like you don't like force yourself to be friends with someone that like you really don't want to be friends with. Like, to connect with your ancestors, you shouldn't force yourself to do things that really like aren't fun or exciting or engaging. So like just how like you build friends in real life, like you can build friendships with understanding your ancestors' stories by like using the direction of homelands to like kind of guide and direct you in how you can make those connections. So
awesome. Great advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and helping us out with this. And my husband just got home. And I really appreciate you being here with us.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.